On today's Community Wednesday, let's break down the Modern Warfare M13. The M13 has always been one of my favorite weapons. Despite its lack of damage, it always had superior recoil. And I've used it in many different situations with different builds, including this one that I talked about many months ago. But today, we're going to be breaking down the stats of the most optimal M13 build and see if it's worth using. In this build, we're using the monolithic suppressor, Tempest marksman barrel, tac laser, candid hybrid, and 60 round mags. If you're wondering why we're not using the Commando Foregrip, the mobility and recoil stats will explain everything. So let's get right into the stats, starting with mobility. Its ADS time is 280 milliseconds, which is quite fast for such a long range build. Its reload and reload add times are at an amazing 2.63 seconds from empty and 2.35 if you leave one bullet in the mag. And it has a mag cap of 60, so definitely try to save one bullet in the mag before you reload. Its movement and sprint speeds though aren't the greatest, and this is due to the marksman barrel. If you take a look at the stats of the other builds using the cyclone barrel, you can see that they are substantially faster. However, for a Modern Warfare weapon, this is incredibly fast. Its ADS strike speed, however, is 1.81 meters per second, which is average for long-range assault rifles regardless of game. And its sprint out and tac sprint out times are 270 and 360 milliseconds, which is pretty average. Its stability is 1.5T, which is great for a long-range weapon, but its bullet velocity is at an amazing 1,250 meters per second. This is one of the highest bullet velocities you can achieve on an assault rifle in the game, and this is just amazing for long-range engagements. Its rate of fire is at an amazing 14.88 rounds per second, which means you're going to be making your enemy flinch like crazy. This also means that it's extremely forgiving. If you miss a shot, you can easily come back on target and you won't be punished as much as someone with something like an EM2. So it gets a mobility score of 36. Its recoil is among the best in the game. You can easily use this up to 170 meters. The recoil is affected a lot by aiming stability, but regardless, it's pretty much going to be going up and then diagonally to the right. So it gets a recoil score of 49. So the reason we're not using the Commando Foregrip is right here. This is what the recoil pattern looks like without the Commando Foregrip. As you can see, there isn't much of a difference between not using it and using it. The Commando Foregrip does help with aiming stability and recoil stabilization, but it hurts your mobility way too much. And since you're not getting that ADS time boost, it's just not really that competitive when compared to other assault rifles at that point. Now for its damage. It has a drop-off range at 54 meters, which is pretty great for an assault rifle. And regardless of where you hit at whatever range, your TTK is going to be slightly below average, but it does get better. At any range, as long as you get one headshot, it suddenly removes one shot from your shots to kill. And this means your TTKs are now average, and there will be very few weapons that can beat this TTK. This makes the M13 extremely versatile, so it gets a damage score of 40, and when we add up all the categories, it gets a final score of 125. By now, you can probably see the M13's versatility. This is probably the closest we've gotten to a balanced, but great all-purpose weapon. Most weapons that have been described as all-purpose have usually been pretty meta and have been nerfed pretty shortly after. They were just way too good at everything. But the one thing the M13 is not really good at is its mobility. Sure, it's still better than most Modern Warfare weapons, but it is nowhere near as good as Cold War weapons. But its hits and mobility are absolutely worth the trade-off for its extreme ranges that it can get. If you want a weapon that you can tap fire at long range, this is definitely not it, since it requires way too many shots to kill. But if you want something that you can fire full auto at long ranges, or close ranges even, this is probably it. It's only 5 milliseconds slower at close range than the Cold War AK, so if you get caught off guard, you don't actually need to switch to your secondary. You can just flip your sight and gun them down. Just remember to hit that headshot. But if you're making them flinch, you may not actually need to. I wouldn't recommend fighting SMGs with this, but against most other primaries, I would say why not. However, it does have a major issue. Its ammo. Since it has such a high rate of fire, you're going to be burning through ammo so quickly, and you may not always be able to replenish it. If you're not being very aggressive, you may not be able to pick up ammo from dead players. And that's a slight problem for not just a long-range weapon, but an extremely long-range weapon. And while its recoil is really amazing, the visual recoil may be a lot for many players. Especially if they're used to Cold War weapons, this is going to be a huge difference. Despite how good this weapon is, I rarely see it in Warzone. Even that cheesy support build that I talked about a few months ago is extremely good, but I never see it either. I get that most people that want a long-range Modern Warfare assault rifle will usually gravitate towards the Growl, and they usually use a Commando Foregrip on that, but that means its ADS time is much worse than the M13's, its movement sprint speeds are way worse, and even then, the M13 still gets way more range than it. You won't be getting someone head glitching at 170 meters, but if they're out there running in the open, you can easily gun them down, while with many other weapons, you wouldn't be able to control. So I highly recommend the M13. And if you don't try this long range build, at least try the support build. They're both incredibly fun to use and actually effective. So that's the M13. Have you used it recently, or have you never stopped? Let me know either way. And as always, if there's any build, weapon, or part of the game you want to break down, let me know and you may see it on the next Community Wednesday. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it or it's helped you in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.